Chief!
Make it.
It's been an honor serving with you, John.
Yeah, this is a Halo channel now.
I do what I want!
Now, for those of you who haven't been following my lasso journey that I've archived a good portion of here on YouTube, that little intro signifies the completion of an achievement, or rather a series of achievements, if you will. A goal that I kind of set for myself to complete every achievement in Halo the Master Chief Collection before the release of Halo Infinite. And with the help of my good friend Wilson, or as he's known online, MohawkMan2015, who's going to be streaming Halo Infinite on release day, if you're interested, hop over to Twitch and give him a watch. And on November 16th, we were finally able to finish the Halo 2 campaign on Lasso difficulty, Legendary with all skulls on, thus getting the final achievement that I needed to complete Halo the Master Chief Collection.
But you did it. Truth and the Covenant, the Flood, it's finished.
It's finished.
I'll drop a beacon, but it'll be a while before anyone finds us. Years, even. I miss you.
Wake me when you need me.
However, just a day prior, on November 15th, 343 had done the unthinkable. In honor of Halo and Xbox's 20th anniversary, they released Halo Infinite's multiplayer on November 15th, weeks earlier than its original release date.
You weren't supposed to do that.
But finally, after years of waiting, it's here. It's finally out. Na 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 na. We can finally play the game proper. However, there is one small detail that goes along with this surprise early release. It's a beta. Which means, doesn't matter. Still counts. I got them all before it came out. Eat your heart out, Rocket Sloth. Even though it's got all the content that it's going to have at launch, and even though I'm pretty sure they just kind of used it as an excuse to explain away any bugs or issues that people might encounter, doesn't matter. I got them, baby. And you know what I got in Halo Infinite for getting every single achievement in the Halo Master Chief Collection? Something that only about 1,800 people have done in the entire Halo community across all platforms.
You get nothing. You lose.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
I'm a little sad that I didn't actually get anything for doing all that other than a sense of pride and accomplishment. Yeah, but we'll get into that here in a minute. But there's really one reason why you're here, and that's because a new Halo game's out. One that came arguably at the most crucial point in the entire history of the franchise, and arguably the biggest launch of this year. And you're probably wondering, is it any good? Well, After thrusting myself straight from one Halo game into the next, and having logged about 50 hours in the new multiplayer, not to mention probably 5,000 hours across the entire franchise, I'd say I feel pretty qualified in telling you guys whether this is the Halo game we deserve or the one that we need right now. After hearing rumors that 343 Industries has been watching and responding to videos that have had constructive criticism and feedback on Halo Infinite, and considering that this game's launch has already had enough drama to fill an entire Netflix feature film, minus all the child nudity, I thought it might be nice to go ahead and share my thoughts on how to take this game from being a very good Halo game to being the perfect Halo game. And make no mistake, Halo Infinite is very good from a multiplayer standpoint. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that, because there is a lot, and I mean a lot, that this game does really, really well. And there are some things that it does not so well. Also, I do want to make a quick note that in this video, the only part of the game that I will be discussing is the multiplayer, as that's the only part of the game that I've played so far. The campaign will get its own, probably equally lengthy video. However, a lot of the mechanical stuff I'm just going to go ahead and discuss here, just because it relates to the gameplay. So I'm probably going to skip over that in the next video, so I'll direct you guys back here if you're looking to find that from there. Okay, so one last little note here. I actually had about 4 hours of online multiplayer gameplay recorded for this video, but something happened and it ended up getting lost. So all the footage that you're going to watch here in this video, with the exception of some big team battle footage, is going to be against bots on ODST difficulty. So without further ado, let's just go ahead. Now, saying that I was skeptical of 343's ability to make this the Halo game that it needed to be is an understatement. I mean, it's been 6, 9, 11 years since we had a truly great Halo game to play. And as someone who's been with the franchise since Halo 3, and who hasn't exactly been a huge fan of the way that 343 has handled the franchise, I don't know if it was in my initial review of the gameplay trailer that came out, the E3 demo, that caused the delay, but I remember saying either at the time or shortly thereafter that Halo Infinite had the potential to be the best Halo game ever made. And now, having played the game's multiplayer for about 50 hours or so, I still stand by that statement. And that isn't in any way a slight at the game, because strictly speaking, Halo Infinite's multiplayer is absolutely phenomenal. 343, you have done an incredible job on this game. And from the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank you on behalf of both myself and longtime fans of the franchise. The amount of hard work and effort and love and passion and care that you have poured into this project shows at every turn. And on behalf of myself and longtime fans of the franchise, I would like to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making a truly, truly incredible Halo game. I do not exaggerate when I say this is the most fun that I have had in a Halo game since Halo 3. 343 have done an absolutely amazing job in making a game that captures the classic Halo experience while keeping all the niceties and the creature comforts and the amenities of a modern 2021 multiplayer shooter, which is something I know they tried to do with the release of Halo 5, but something about that felt off. It didn't quite feel like Halo was supposed to. This game feels like a Halo game. Halo Infinite is proof that things like clambering and sprint and ADS can all exist in a Halo universe and feel like they belong in a Halo game. This game sandboxes an almost perfect blend of classic and modern arena shooter mechanics. The game looks incredible, it sounds incredible, it feels incredible. One of my favorite things about Halo Wars 2 was that it marked the return to the classic, iconic Halo art style. All the characters, the Marines, the Elites, the Brutes, all the vehicles and everything that we had come to know and love about Halo was presented in a way that was modernized, but also felt familiar and was recognizable to anyone that had ever played a Halo game in the last 15-20 years. And Halo Infinite strikes the exact same chord by being a completely seamless blend between the best of the old art style and the best of the new. From the visual aspects to the game's design to the sound, every weapon in this game, every vehicle in this game sounds very satisfying, very meaty, just super awesome and super fun to use. The Brute Chopper in this game sounds like a proper hog, and I love that. I mean, for crying out loud, just listen to this shield recharge sound effect. From a sheerly artistic standpoint, this is everything I could have ever wanted and more from a new Halo game. And speaking of weapons, the sandbox in this game, from the weapons to the vehicles to the equipment, everything that's there is super, super incredible. It's all just so crazy fun to use. I had said before that I feel like Bungie's design philosophy when it came to Halo was make a fun game first, design for fun, and then build the rest of the game around that. So whether or not something made sense within the lore, if it makes a fun game, go ahead and throw it in there, and then you can justify it in the lore later. And I feel like that was something that had really been lost on Halo for a while now. But I can absolutely say with utmost confidence that that design philosophy is back for Halo Infinite, because everything about this game is designed to make you have the most fun possible. And even though we're missing some of the most iconic Halo weapons and vehicles of all time, and even though adding these longtime franchise staples would require some balancing work, sure, but they would also add a lot of potential fun factor to the game. That being said, there is still a lot to love about the Halo Infinite sandbox, both in returning weapons, such as the battle rifle and the assault rifle, which is probably the most useful assault rifle in any Halo game that I've ever played, barring Halo Combat Evolved. There are also incredible new weapons like the Skewer and the Mangler, which feel like absolutely seamless evolutions of both the Brute Shot and the Mauler, respectively. I've always loved the Brute weapons from Halo 3 and the Brute art style, all the Brute armors, the Brute designs, and it's awesome to see that stuff returned for Infinite and for those weapons to be so fun and so incredible. And there are weapons like the Bulldog, which is a fantastic weapon, but it just can't replace the old school M90 shotgun. I'm sorry, it just can't. I need that shotgun in my life. And then you have weapons like the Stalker Rifle, which while I don't think it's quite as perfect of an evolution to the Carbine as the Skewer and Mangler are to their Brute counterparts from previous games, it is still a really fun weapon to use. Then there are the more interesting weapons, like the Commando, which has gone through a myriad of forms, just from the beta tests to now. I think it's in a pretty decent spot. It's still a lot of fun to use and can still be really useful. You know, it doesn't just feel like it's trying to replace the DMR, which is a good thing. It still feels like its own unique gun, and it's still very fun to pick up and use. And then you have the Sidekick, which, again, like the Bulldog, is a very fun weapon. This is a very fun, one of my favorite weapons to use in Infinite, is the Sidekick. However, it's just not the Magnum. It's not the same. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, 343. It's just not the same. Of course, there are some, balancing decisions that have been made that are different to previous Halo titles, as there are with any title, such as the ability to EMP vehicles with lightning weapons, such as the new Dynamo Grenade, which is kind of an EMP grenade, works really well on vehicles, and also drains enemy shields really quickly, a lot like the Power Drain from Halo 3. And the new Shock Rifle, which is a really fun weapon to use, and I really like the gun. I just don't know how I feel about it being able to EMP vehicles, especially so easily. I feel like taking the ability to EMP vehicles away from the Plasma Pistol, where it needs to be fully charged, and giving it to the Shock Rifle, where you just have to land a couple of hits on a vehicle, is kind of a mistake. But, this is a very, very fluid game. There's going to be a lot of changes to it, and I don't see any reason why something like that couldn't be changed later on down the line. Also, using the energy sword with the grapple shot on small maps completely breaks the game, but considering getting them both at the same time is like collecting all 5 pieces of Exodia, as far as I'm concerned. If you get both of those, you win the game. Also, while I'm on the topic of the energy sword, I do have a couple of really small problems with it. It looks like the version of the energy sword that we get in this game is kind of lacking in definition compared to previous games. Almost like it looks like it's missing its textures, or like it's a watercolor painting or something. You can see it in this screenshot comparing the energy sword from Halo 2 Anniversary to the one in Halo Infinite. I wondered if maybe I was missing a texture or something because I wasn't running the high resolution textures, but this is just what it looks like apparently. And I just feel like having that little bit of definition really makes it pop. And I understand totally that is the smallest nitpick that I could possibly have about the game. That is not lost on me. And seeing that this is the positive section of the video where I'm talking about the things that the game does well and what this game does well, it does incredibly well. I'm trying to keep all of my complaints to like very small nitpicks in this section, because this game, everything that I've talked about up to this point, this game is phenomenal at. It absolutely excels at. Everything that this game does well, it does incredibly well. You know, Halo Infinite also saw the return of equipment from Halo 3 that you pick up from the map. And for the most part, the equipment is in the game is all really, really fun to use, very satisfying, and it has awesome utilization and features that enhance the gameplay of Halo Infinite a lot, in my opinion. You know, you have the grapple shot, which obviously makes the game a lot more fun because of the grapple hook. Come on now. And then you have some other fun things like the repulsor, which is another one of my favorite equipment pieces in this game. I remember, like, on launch day, I was playing a match on a launch site, which is the kind of countdown-inspired map in this game. If you remember Countdown from Halo Reach with the Saber launch pad in it. There was somebody who was taking the man cannon across from one side to the other, and I got the repulsor and I just stood at the end, and as they got to me I just bounced them back and they fell to their death. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a Halo game. The threat sensor is very useful, especially for like ranked play when you don't have a radar. Honestly, I feel like the weakest link in this game for the equipment is the drop wall. I just feel like it could use either a buff to the speed at which you throw it out. I always feel like I'm getting killed before I can fully deploy. Or make it just a little bit stronger. I feel like each little section of the wall is only good for maybe one shot, depending on the weapon. And considering that it takes more time to deploy than, say, like a deployable cover or a bubble shield from Halo 3, I think it could be either a little faster or a little stronger, or maybe both. And speaking of welcome additions to both this game and the Halo franchise, this game, is the first new Halo shooter to add bots at launch that you can play against offline instead of having to load up a matchmaking game to play, or custom games to play, Slayer, capture the flag. If you don't have 7 friends handy, or if you don't want to play matchmaking, you can play against bots. And you can see in the gameplay that I'm showing that these bots are on ODST difficulty, and they're probably, I would say, about 80% as good as like most players that you would find in a quick play match most of the time. But if you're really trying to replicate the feeling of playing with actual people, especially ones that are somewhat skilled at the game, I recommend Spartan difficulty. That's the closest you're going to get. And even that is not 100% perfect, but it's very close. Also, you can throw fusion coils in this game. That's the thing. For the first time in 20 years, you can just walk by a fusion coil, literally just pick it up, grab it, and carry it around with you. And then when you see somebody that you want to destroy with it, you just lob it at them. It's awesome. Also, I really like the little personal AI companion that you get for your Spartan in multiplayer. I feel like it really does a good job of doing what 343 kind of tried to do starting with Halo 4, which is cement your multiplayer Spartan into the lore of the Halo universe. And I think it does a really good job of that. And I really like all their different personalities and their little quips and stuff. I get that it's not for everyone, and it kind of bothers some people. But me personally, I just enjoy it.
Let's just try our best not to get killed, okay?
Kebab them all, Spartan.
Also, the Superintendent AI is probably, unironically, the only thing I actually want out of the Battle Pass this season. And the last thing that I want to talk about that this game does really well as a concept is customization. 343 said with this game that it was going to have a very similar customization system to Halo Reach, and they were not kidding. The amount of customization categories there are in this game for you to customize your Spartan are incredible. There's so many opportunities to be able to customize your Spartan just from, you can customize your helmet, your shoulders, your visor color, your gloves, your legs, all kinds of different armor pieces that can be customized. But this comes with a massive asterisk that I'm going to leave for the tail end of this video, because there are also some points I want to make about the customization that are on the less than positive side. So I wanted to reserve this section of the video not just for the negative aspects of the game, but also some of the weird quirks that I found while playing. Things that aren't necessarily negative, they're just kind of odd to me, but also things that are negative but aren't necessarily the end of the world or game breaking, just kind of minor negative things that I would like to see changed in Halo Infinite. Starting with the way that weapons spawn in this game. So weapons spawn around the map. You have your power weapon spawns, and you also have your weapon pickups off the walls and stuff. But it doesn't seem to be consistent in what spawns where. You saw that battle rifle back there on the wall. Sometimes when you load up, this map streets, sometimes there will be a commando there instead of a battle rifle, or the cinder shot that spawns in the middle of the map will be a rocket launcher instead. I don't really see that there's any kind of rhyme or reason as to why these spawn, but once they spawn at the beginning of the match, whatever they spawn as, they'll stay that for the entire match. Just like normal. So, if the cinder shot loads up, it will always be the cinder shot. When it respawns, it'll still be the cinder shot. But I feel like it would make more sense for it to maybe be segregated by game mode, so that, for example, if you're playing Slayer, the rocket launcher will spawn, but if you're playing a different game mode, like for example the Stronghold's the game mode I'm playing now, maybe the cinder shot could spawn on this map, because as you can see, the cinder shot is really fun to bank off some of these walls and get into those capture zones. Because as someone who understands the importance of knowing where your weapons spawn and keeping control of the map for that reason, it really confused me trying to learn which weapons spawn where just because of this. It threw me off for a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. And I just feel like making a small change like that would really help, kind of keep people knowing what to expect whenever they load into a match. Another thing that I don't really consider a strength or a weakness to Halo Infinite per se is its optimization. The game, is optimized fairly well. It runs fairly decently. I'm running on an i5 6600K at 4.2 gigahertz with 16 gigs of RAM and a GTX 1080, and I usually get pretty decent FPS. It runs pretty much exactly how I would expect it to. I can get like 90 to 110 frames a second on smaller maps for 4v4, and on big team battle I usually get anywhere between 70 to I've seen as high as 100 on certain maps. But for whatever reason, I noticed a fairly high amount of crashes whenever the game first released. It would just hard crash to desktop, and I had to jump through all these hoops to get the game to stop crashing every single round. Like, I'd heard that, the game didn't like multi-monitor setups, or that you had to run the game in windowed mode, or try uninstalling the high-res textures, so I did all those things. And then I tried resetting my frame rate from unlocked to minimum of 60 and a maximum of 120, because I'd heard that the game likes locked frame rates in intervals of 60 for some reason. And I eventually found the combination of tricks that would get the game running stably again. So I don't really have any problems running the game as is. It was just kind of annoying, and it's something that I hope is patched out, once the game goes full release very soon. So I guess we'll just wait and see. And while I haven't been able to record any, I have noticed some problems, and I've noticed other people talking online about some desync between, client and server, like different people's games, registering players in different positions, or shots not registering properly. And I have seen this happen, and I don't really blame the game too much, because it's kind of something that every game suffers from to an extent. If anything, I would say it just proves my theory that 60 Hz servers need to be the industry standard. And I'll pretty much leave it at that. I don't want to fault the game too much for that, because it's just something that the industry as a whole suffers from. And I don't know if it has anything to do with those issues, but there are also some kind of shenanigans with theater mode at the moment as well, where your Spartan's orientation and positions and shots and where you're aiming don't all exactly register correctly in theater mode either. So unfortunately, if you're wanting to preserve a match, or like a round of gameplay, your only options at this point are to either record it using some kind of software like OBS or Shadowplay on PC or something like that, or a capture card or something if you're on Xbox. I don't know how the kids are recording their gameplay these days. And next up I want to talk about Big Team Battle, which, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that Big Team Battle's back and has its own playlist, but it just feels really empty. Like, the lack of vehicles in the game makes it feel almost abandoned. I don't know how it can feel more empty with having, 50% more players per match, but I just don't know why, if it was a hardware limitation or what, something with the game, for whatever reason that they couldn't do that, but I really feel like each map on Big Team needs more vehicles. It's appreciated that, on maps like High Power, both sides get a Wasp, but it's really unfortunate that there's not a Scorpion or a Wraith on the map until almost the very end of the game. Sometimes not at all, even. Now, don't get me wrong, Big Team Battle is still a lot of fun, and I really like the way that the Pelicans drop off the vehicles during the match. But I just feel like each side could use a couple more vehicles to start with, just at each base. Maybe like an extra Warthog, or a Ghost, or a Chopper, or something, depending on the map. Or a Scorpion if you're playing heavies, if there's a heavies game mode or something. And also, another thing to note about Big Team Battle, I did notice a slight stutter sometimes when I was playing with OBS recording. You saw it just there. I didn't really get this during when I'm just playing, but it just, something to note that it does happen when OBS is running. And something else I noticed about Big Team Battle, and specifically the way it interacts with bots, whenever I was trying to get gameplay for this video, I decided to set up a match of Big Team with bots just to see, how it would work. I didn't know if the AI would use the vehicles or not, and it turns out they don't, and I'm kind of disappointed. I don't know if I just didn't play around with it enough, but I noticed none of the AI, none of the bots were grabbing vehicles, and I kind of think this might have something to do with the fact that, perhaps they'd be stealing them from players who wanted to drive them, but maybe there could be some kind of system where a bot will only enter a vehicle if you honk at them, because there is a new honking mechanic in the game where it will actually ping your vehicle and tell your team that you have an open seat if you honk your horn in the vehicle at a slow speed, allowing people to see, hey, this person has an open vehicle seat, and they will hop in and go for a ride. So maybe the bots could only hop in when you honk at them, or if you ping, using the ping mechanic, if you ping a vehicle that an AI is driving, that they'll get out of whatever position they're in. Just might be a way to help the bots be a little more useful in Big Team, because you do see bots in a lot of matches online, just because there's a new feature where bots will actually join a game as a replacement for a teammate that maybe dropped out. It kind of helps you from getting, just annihilated because one person left on your team or your whole team left. So, while the bots aren't perfect, it's better than nothing. At least at that point you still stand a chance. And I think that's a really cool mechanic. I just feel like adding something like that to where there's some kind of vehicle functionality to them would really help them become a lot more prominent if they need to be in something like Big Team Battle. This next one's just a little something for me. It's more something that I am sad that I didn't see in the game, versus something that I think is wrong with the game. And it's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't take too long on it. But one of the biggest things that I've wanted in Halo since as long as I can remember is just a huge Battlefield-style, all-out war type mode. Basically Halo Wars, but just first person. There's pelicans flying around, phantoms, there's scarabs, there's elephants, all kinds of... you got your scorpions, you got your wraiths, you got scarabs, you got pelicans flying around, all player controlled. And I know that Halo 5 kind of did something similar to this with Warzone, but I would take it a step further and make all of that playable, and even something like playable Covenant. It could even be a mode where you play as Marines by default as your standard unit, or grunts or jackals or elites on the Covenant side. But there could be kind of a Star Wars Battlefront style system where the more you play and the better you do, the more points you get to unlock certain character classes. Like for the UNSC, you could unlock ODSTs or Spartans with enough points earned in battle, or on the Covenant side you could unlock elites, zealots, hunters. There could be different classes depending on how you perform. That's just a little pipe dream of mine that I wasn't expecting to see it in Halo Infinite, and I'm sure that the technical hurdles involved in pulling that off are immense. But based on what we've seen from the modding community with things like Halo Custom Edition's Extinction, and even as recently as the Master Chief Collection with Rejected Shotguns, Arcbound, and Extinction 2.0, this shows us that while it is incredibly difficult, it is not impossible. And I would love, love, love to see something like this come to Halo in Infinite or at some point in the future. So the final mildly negative thing I want to talk about in regards to Halo Infinite is the playlist situation for matchmaking. And I know that this has been touched on in a lot of other reviews, so I'll try to keep it brief. But as it stands, there are only really 3 matchmaking playlists. There's Quick Play, there's Big Team Battle, and there's Rank. Where if you select the Quick Play playlist, you'll be put in the matchmaking queue that has 4 basic game modes. And those are Slayer, Oddball, Capture the Flag, and lastly, Strongholds. Now granted, there are several variants of Capture the Flag, such as Neutral, One Flag, and then, standard CTF. And then there are also variations of those same game modes in the Big Team Battle playlist, such as, instead of Strongholds, which is like Domination from Call of Duty or Conquest from Battlefield, zone control type game mode. In Big Team Battle, you have Total Control, which is basically the same thing, only you have to control all 3 zones on the map at the same time to score. And instead of, just having Capture the Flag, which you can play in Big Team, you also have a mode called Stockpile, which is, kind of similar to Capture the Flag, only instead of a flag, it's these power seeds that are these little carryable core items that you can grab from the middle of the map, and they spawn in groups of like 5 or 6 in the middle of the map, and you can go and grab one of them at a time and haul them back to your base where you can store them. And there's a little module that you put these into, and when you have 5 of them all at once, you score. And it's, whoever scores, 3 or 5 points first wins. But at any point while you're storing these power seeds, you don't score until you hit 5 in the bank. So at any point while you're storing these, the enemy team can come to your base and steal these from you. So it's a really interesting game mode. I really like it. I have a lot of fun playing it. It's a welcome addition to Big Team. And then lastly, Ranked is basically just quick play, but with BR starts, no radar, and friendly fire. And while just about all these modes is a blast in and of themselves, I can't help but notice the absence of a few fan-favorite modes, such as Free-for-all Slayer, SWAT, my all-time favorite Halo mode, Griffball. Where's my Griffball 343? And while Fiesta Slayer was added with the post-launch Tenrai event right after the release of the beta, and it is an incredibly fun game type. It is a lot of fun. It's such a welcome addition to the game. I was super, super heartbroken to see it go. One thing I would change about it, though, is that as it stands, the game just kind of devolves into grapple shot and hammer and sword and rocket launcher the game. Something I think that would kind of fix this a little bit would be that instead of spawning with a random piece of equipment already on your person every time you respawn, you could instead spawn with no equipment and have the equipment spawn where it normally spawns, but have random equipment spawn, kind of like how the random vehicles spawn, but they still spawn at their designated spots on the map. And not only is there a less than ideal amount of both maps and game modes in the game at launch, especially in the matchmaking rotation. Speaking of maps, there are only 10 maps in the entire game, and 3 of which are Big Team Battle maps. And while I love maps like this one, Live Fire, Streets, and Recharge, like High Power and Fracture, I really get confused a lot in Halo Infinite at first, just because they kind of feel and look pretty samey. Personally, I could have done with a little bit more variety in the area of the maps and in the design aesthetically, and also, a few more maps wouldn't have gone amiss. Maybe a remake of a classic franchise map or 2, just to throw in there, just to, to pad it out a little bit. And I know it's already being addressed, so I'm just going to briefly mention it, that I really hope player collision returns, especially for enemies after watching this clip during editing a few seconds ago. Some of the melee fights get a little wonky without player collision, and I know that 343 has already addressed this and said that they're adding it back in, they're phasing it back in, and I'm very excited for that. I feel like the game could do a better job of broadcasting, though, that in, like big team battle matches, that you still have player collision when your friendlies are driving vehicles. Even though you don't normally have player collision at all, you can still run over your teammates and kill them. And I feel like people could stand to know this information because, my God, they do not stop. What was I talking about? Oh, maps and game modes. So, not only are there not a lot of maps and game modes to go around as it is, you're going to be really hard-pressed to try and find the mode that you want to play, because as it stands, you cannot just select an individual mode because they're all bundled in, to the quick play playlist or the big team battle playlist or what have you. And this is another thing that has already been addressed by 343. They said that they are aware of this and that they are currently working on a solution, but Sketch went on Reddit and said that he didn't really know what that solution would look like long term. I would really like to suggest, because I know that they're worried about fracturing the community, and they said that a lot of the challenges were based around these playlists, and we'll talk about that later, but I would just like to recommend a system like the mixtape system from Titanfall 2, where you can opt in or out of several different matchmaking game modes or playlists at a time, where this way you could start matchmaking for, say, a Capture the Flag match and a Slayer match at the same time, and you'll end up in whichever playlist you found a match for first. And now I know Halo MCC has a system just like this, but you can't do lobbies of different sizes like Big Team Battle and regular Slayer, and I think that'd be a welcome change. It's an incredible system, a really, really genius system in my opinion, and I don't understand why more games haven't done a similar method of matchmaking. I feel like that could be a really nice solution to people that want to play specific game modes and people that don't really mind what they play, and a good way for people to hit their challenges still, too. And this is kind of where I don't really know how to feel, because, Sketch went on Reddit and he even said that, he didn't really think that anyone at 343 felt like releasing Halo Infinite without just a Slayer-only playlist was a good idea. And I don't want to, attribute motive or anything and say, oh, they did it on purpose, they knew it was like this and they shipped it anyway, because it may have been out of their hands. 343 was under a lot of pressure after delaying the game once already, and with the 20th anniversary of both Xbox and Halo coming up fast, I'm sure that Microsoft was dead set on releasing this game as close to or on that deadline as possible. So they may not have had a choice in releasing the game when they did. So I don't know that this was the best system that they could have come up with, but maybe it was just, the best that they had with the hand they were dealt. That being said, in addition to some other things that I'm going to be talking about toward the end of this video, I probably think this game would have benefited from being delayed just a little bit longer, at least the multiplayer aspect. But I'm sure Microsoft was dead set on this game releasing when it did. So I'm willing to cut 343 some slack on this one, because I can see that they are committed to getting this game to be the game that we all want it to be. Also, one last thing before I go. Playable Elites. Bring it back. I know it's probably hard, but it was fun. It was awesome. Bring it back. So this game is very clearly not without its flaws, and now we are officially waist deep into the worst section of the video, detailing the biggest disappointments of the game, of which there are a few. And after this next point, just about all the points that I'm going to talk about are kind of intertwined with each other, so I'm just going to kind of get this one out of the way first, and that is the horrible, horrible news that Halo Infinite will not have Forge at launch.
And we also made the tough call to delay shipping Forge past launch as well.
Oh, it still burns my ears to hear those words. This is probably far and away the most disappointing thing about Halo Infinite for me, because as someone who's played this franchise on and off for 15 years or so, probably my all-time favorite feature of a Halo game
Capture their flag.
is its ability to become anything through the combined powers of Forge and custom games. Custom games was already an incredible feature to have because of, you know, the time when it debuted and what it allowed the game to become. And then you had Forge release with Halo 3 in 2006, and that took things to incredible new heights that no one ever thought would be possible. And you could literally do anything you wanted. You could basically make any variant of game inside of another game. And custom games with the power of Forge is pretty much the reason that I and many others stay with Halo as long as we do, because it's just basically infinite replayability in a can. You know, I can't tell you how many hours I've spent in Halo custom games playing things like, you know, Cops and Robbers, School, in, you know, the thousands upon thousands of infection game types, you know, Toilet, you know, Garbage Man, Ice Cream Man, Fat Kid, Jenga, all kinds of crazy stuff. Speed Halo and Halo Reach, Jump Rope, you know, just the memories are countless. And for such an integral part of the Halo experience, in my opinion, to not be present at launch was a crushing blow for this game for me. Do I think that makes it a horrible game that's not worth playing? No, but it significantly hurts the game's overall quality for me. I cannot in good conscience give this game a perfect score or anywhere near it when it's missing such a big feature in my eyes. And I'm sure that Forge in Halo Infinite is going to be an evolution of the prior game's Forge mode, just like every other Halo game before it, and I cannot wait to see the things that come out of it. I wish it a speedy entry to the franchise, and it will be missed. Next, I guess I better address the elephant in the room, the Halo Infinite free-to-play model, and all the changes that have come with it, and all the things that have gone horribly wrong with that model. I believe that overall going to free-to-play could have been a very good move for Halo Infinite. It would have been a very nice and easy way to get a lot of new players involved in the franchise, and it would have been a way to, you know, to ensure that a healthy, thriving community for a long time coming. Now, when Halo Infinite was announced that it was going to have a free-to-play multiplayer, I was concerned about two things. The first of which was that it was going to be, like many other free-to-play multiplayer shooters in this day and age, a haven, especially on PC, for cheaters of all kinds. The second thing I was worried about was that they would take items that should have been in the game, that would have been in a normal $60 experience, and would have locked them behind paywalls, or limited player customization and control for profit. A fear that only became worse when I learned of the armor coating system, where specific colors, materials, and patterns would be locked to specific cosmetic items instead of just customizing your Spartan's colors in a traditional sense, where you have everything unlocked and you can just apply it as you see fit. And there were a bunch of people trying to explain at the time that it was announced that it wouldn't be like that, you know, it's just the patterns or whatever, all the basic colors are going to be there. You know, there's going to be plenty of colors available even if you don't do the armor coating stuff, and plenty of patterns. There's still going to be a plethora of customization for you there. That is not the case. But all but the absolute worst looking armor coatings are locked behind some form of paywall or another. Not only that, but you can't even apply armor coatings to all of your armor. In fact, different armor cores, of which there are 3, 2 if you don't buy the Battle Pass, require that you unlock each coating for each core individually, if that core is even available to have that armor coating put on it. And yes, all other armor in the game functions the same way. What goes on the Mark 7 armor core will most likely not go on any other core. I mentioned earlier that the customization potential in this game is incredible, and it is. There are a lot of different avenues that you could customize your Spartan. However, many of these customization options are either locked behind the Battle Pass, locked to the store, or not even in the game at all. There are several item slots, such as your gloves for the Mark 7, that don't even have any armor at all available. None. Even you couldn't even buy it if you wanted to. In fact, across the board, there is a stunning lack of armor in this game, especially if you're a free player. If you buy the Battle Pass, you get access to several different pieces of armor. Quite a few. But they're all based on, almost exclusively, on Noble Team. And I'm sorry, but I can't justify paying $10 and then grinding to unlock armor that I've already unlocked before. That is, honestly fan favorite, classic armor that should, at least some of it, be able to be earned through gameplay. I don't expect everything in this game to be free. I understand that, as Sketch said, this is a business. This game is designed to make money at the end of the day. I do not disagree with that philosophy. However, there needs to be a serious increase in the amount of content for free players, and a serious increase in the amount of content in the game in general. Because for the Season 1 Battle Pass, if you do not pay for it, you gain access to 2 helmets, 2 chests, a set of shoulders, and I believe a wrist accessory for your Mark 7 armor core. You do not gain access to the Mark 5 base armor core. That is Battle Pass paid exclusive. It really looks like the Battle Pass and the pricing model in this game was explicitly designed to limit player choice unless you pay money to unlock most of the armor available in the game. Now, since launch, there have been several sets of armor and several, accessories here and there added to the store that refreshes on a weekly basis. However, these are incredibly expensive, with just one armor set costing a whopping $20. Not to mention several armor sets being mismatched or bundled with things that you don't even want just to justify the higher price tag. This is one of the most egregious examples I've ever seen of a free-to-play game price model. I've seen free-to-play mobile games with better pricing. And speaking of the Battle Pass itself, I don't actually have that big of a problem with the rate at which you progress through the Battle Pass levels. I'm much more concerned with the lack of content, even in the paid Battle Pass, especially since this season has been extended and Season 2 will not release until May of next year. So this season, and its very limited content, has to last us 6 months. And while we're on the subject of the Battle Pass and challenges, there is a bug that I would like to report. My only real problem that I have with the challenge system is that they don't always register that you've completed challenges. For example, I played a Slayer match. I had a weekly challenge to kill 25 enemies in Slayer. So I got lucky enough to get a Slayer game mode, from the random quick play playlist, because I couldn't control it. Because it feels like the system is designed to really, really implement a hard grind. So I was finally lucky enough to get a Slayer playlist, a Slayer match, and I played it, and I got 21 kills that match. Then I checked my challenge afterwards, and it only gave me credit for 15 of those kills. I also had a similar scenario where I have had to get kills with weapons like the Sentinel Beam or the Mangler, and I would get the kills in a match, just like the challenge said, and I still wouldn't get credit for it. So I wish the challenges tracked a little better. And as you see throughout this gameplay, there's plenty of unique armor sets in this game, because the bots that I play with, they all have randomly generated armor sets. So there's plenty of armor in the game, it's just a lot of it isn't available to players, or it's locked behind a paywall, or it's stowed away waiting to be used, in perhaps some event, or, more than likely, to charge for microtransactions in the store. And while a lot of people were really excited whenever they announced that Halo Infinite would have a reach-style progression and customization system for your armor, I was really excited about the armor customization system, but I wasn't really thrilled about the progression system, because I don't really care for Reach's style of play enough and grind enough until your number goes up and you unlock the next piece of armor. I'm not inherently opposed to that style of progression system, like Halo Reach's XP or like a Battle Pass, but I don't want to just grind the game until I level up and unlock a piece of armor. I miss completing rewarding challenges to get sets of armor. I remember during the Halo 3 days, one of the first things I would do in any given match during the pregame lobby would be check everyone's service record to see what level they were, what rank they were, how many games they had completed, what difficulty they beat the campaign on, check and see what armor they were wearing. Because you could tell a lot about a player just based on what armor they had on. Because based on that, you could tell, potentially what difficulty they had beaten the campaign on, or if they had found all the collectibles or not, or if they had just done some really hard shit, Now all Halo armor is good for is to just tell how much money someone has. And I feel like the katana is the perfect example of this. The katana in Halo 3 was like, get every single achievement in the game. And the Halo Infinite katana is like, $15, little man, put that shit in my hand. That is honestly my most requested feature for the armor unlocks, the progression for customization. Make it so that we get cool armor sets, not just for buying them, not just for grinding a simple battle pass level. I want to see cool armors for doing awesome things. Part of me was really, really excited and hopeful when I learned that you get multiplayer customization items, cosmetics, just for doing things, finding armor lockers, hidden collectibles in the campaign. But according to data miners, none of those are even armor pieces. It's literally just coatings and some emblems and charms and a pose. I can't believe that you actually get nothing, really effectively nothing, but some colors for beating the Halo campaign and finding things therein. That's really it. That's all you get for beating the campaign. That's what your $60 is worth. Like, I think it should at least, at the very, very least, give you some Battle Pass seasons, like 2 or 3 seasons worth of Battle Pass unlocked for beating the campaign or purchasing the $60 campaign. I'm not a fan of the entire progression system and microtransaction model, but I think the most egregious part of it is the armor coatings and colors. Locking these behind paywalls and severely limiting the amount of customization that each player has. And taking a lot of that and putting it behind a paywall and effectively removing it from the game for many players. Myself included, I have not purchased the Battle Pass, I have not spent a dime on the Halo Infinite multiplayer, and it's going to stay that way for a while, and until there's something in the game that I feel like deserves my hard-earned money, and something that interests me enough to want to spend it on it. I'm not sure if just this was everything that they could get into Halo Infinite for this specific launch window, or if, maybe this was done intentional at some level. I'm not, I don't want to say, oh, 343, they just locked it behind so they can make more money. I don't know where this is coming from, and I don't know whether it's intentional or not, but I've heard the term in another review of this game, bare bones, used to describe the amount of content, and I could not have said it better myself. This is an incredible framework for a Halo game. The foundation is there for something truly legendary that will last a long time. But there are several key points, like Forge, like the customization, like the progression, the rewards that need to keep players coming back, that I really hope that 343, even though they've worked hard and they've absolutely earned a break this holiday season, I really hope they can act fast to keep the players that are playing around and not have a dead game in a couple of months. And, just another Halo that everyone's forgotten about. At the very least, armor coatings and emblems and all of that stuff should be completely universal. You should not have to unlock multiple items just to put it on a different armor core. Because there was an event right after the launch of Halo Infinite, the multiplayer beta, called the Fractures Tenrai event, which was a 30-tiered event that would come for a week at a time across multiple months this season. But over half of the unlocks were either XP gains or challenge swaps, and there was only one set of armor in the entire 30-tiered battle pass for the event. And 4 of the unlocks for that event were the same emblem that you had to unlock 4 times to be able to use with every armor core. It really feels like they either didn't have or didn't want to put enough content to fully flesh out the game and have legitimate ways to earn it rather than lock it behind a paywall, that everything else is just padding to make up for that lack of content. And then you have the decisions to limit player customization of their own armor. Even after you've put in the time, effort, or money to unlock the armor, you can't swap different pieces to different cores. So Yori armor will only go on the Yori core. Mark V base armor will only go on Mark V base core. So you can't put, the Commando helmet or the EVAC helmet on a Mark VII core because, I don't know, 343 has shared, some kind of lore explanation for this that as to why it won't work. Why the certain armors aren't compatible with different cores. But at this point, honestly, I don't know if I believe them when they say that there's a lore reason as to why these armors cannot be hot swapped, considering these were found in the game files for armor pieces. Now, I don't want to be one of those YouTubers who just complains and never offers any kind of constructive solution to the problem. So, I think it would be interesting to perhaps have an extra armor core that can be compatible with all coatings, all armors, even have like a separate option for the platform. So if you want it to have the base body of the Mark VII or the Mark V base or the Yori core, you could do that. And then you could put literally any armor that you wanted onto it. It could exist outside of the lore, just like a lot of this stuff does. And it would be a great opportunity to free players and allow them to customize their armor the way that they want to. And while there is a lot wrong with Halo Infinite from a consumer standpoint, none of these things are unforgivable, and the game is not too far gone. The game can still become the game that it was always meant to be, the ultimate Halo game. Just because there are things wrong with the game does not mean that 343 does not deserve a ton of praise for everything that they absolutely knocked out of the park with this game. I fully believe that they are capable of making this game live up to its potential. And if they'll have me, I would love to be along for the ride.